Welcome to the Elusive Truth with Rich and Larry. Today we have a unique show. I got a lot planned for us for you to listen, and we had some major technical difficulties with Larry. So I'm going to play you that first, just to kind of give you an idea. You know, all the things that go wrong, just trying to even do a dumb podcast such as the Elusive Truth with Rich and Larry. So sit back and enjoy as we fall down the rabbit hole. Welcome to the Elusive Truth with Rich and Larry. Today we have Larry live on the air. Larry, what's going on?
Well, we're in the middle of a storm, Rich.
Oh, there's a storm of brewing all across this great land of ours.
Okay. Let's test for what we have to do tomorrow. I got some good intel coming in tonight. Oh.
Okay, see? All right, that's weird. See, if I leave you on speakerphone but you can hear me good though, huh?
Yeah, you're good.
So you're going to have good intel. So tomorrow we'll have a good show. We'll have plenty to talk about. It should be awesome.
Oh, yeah. It's been quiet in some stuff, but, man.
Unbelievable. Here.
Yeah, then you can.
Gary, you there? Gary, you there?
I did not hang up.
That was weird, too. I didn't hang up either. The government's on to us, man.
Yeah.
I'm going to try this out, see if you can get this.
I think we...
Good. Wow. Gary, you there?
Now I can hear you.
You can hear me perfect?
Oh, no, not perfect at all. It's vibrating.
Vibrating bad?
Yeah, it's got that reverberation into it.
How about now? Does it sound better?
No, it sounds like the same.
Sound worse, huh?
Yep, same.
Damn, check that out. But I hear you really clear, though.
No distortion at all?
No distortion whatsoever. But you have distortion from me, and I have you. I don't know why it hangs up on us.
Why do we keep losing it?
I don't know.
That's strange.
That's very strange. But see, now, I don't know. This is weird. I sound fine to you now, though, don't I?
Sound fine now, yes.
Sound fine. And if I do this, I still sound fine.
Yep.
So really what I need to do when I talk to you, you still there?
Yep, I'm still here.
All right. See, now if you can hear me good, though?
We'll see if it comes in more clear.
Do I sound fine to you, though?
Now you sound fine. Yep.
All right. So what I have is I have all the crap disconnected from the phone, and I have you on speaker, and I have the phone close to the microphone to hear you.
Now you got to play it back.
Exactly, because you might sound like you're in a frickin' tin can in outer space.
Play back now and see how that last one turned out.
Yeah, so I got a lot 7 minutes of us just chatting. I will talk to you later. I'm going to play this back and listen.
Cool. Thanks, Rich.
All right, man. You have a good one. You take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, we finally made it out of that mess, and I'm still working on the technical difficulties of getting Mr. Larry back on the show for us. So with that, we're going to move ahead, and we're going to go to the David Rubin Show, the Rubin Report. So in this clip, David talks about the new hype, the new scare tactics. We have the new Omicron that's coming out, and they're still trying to do this. And wear your masks because they're scientifically proven effective. So have a listen.
Okay, so Fauci, Lord Fauci, the infallible Fauci, he's back. And despite the fact that he's warning us all about COVID again and kind of wants everybody to mask up and the rest of it, he's also admitting that vaccines don't really protect against getting infected with COVID. Whoopsie-doo. Here's the videotape.
People heard, oh my gosh, this has happened, to Dr. Anthony Fauci. Everyone knows someone who's gotten this again, and sometimes again after that. And they're beginning to wonder about the regimen for treating it. Whether you get 2 vaccination shots, whether you get a booster, another booster. They just don't know. What do you tell them?
Well, that's a great question, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to clarify it, Neil. There's no doubt that the vaccines themselves, particularly vaccine plus a booster at the appropriate time when you become eligible for a booster, for more than one booster, if you're over 50 years old, you get eligibility for 2 boosters. One of the things that's clear from the data, that even though vaccines, because of the high degree of transmissibility of this virus, don't protect overly well, as it were, against infection. They protect quite well against severe disease leading to hospitalization and death. And I believe that's the reason, Neil, why at my age, being vaccinated and boosted, even though it didn't protect me against infection, I feel confident that it made a major role in protecting me from progressing to severe disease.
Okay, man, he is nothing other than a snake oil salesman at this point. First off, for him to admit that even though vaccines don't protect overly well from infection, they were telling you for a year, we were told if you got the vaccine, you were not going to get COVID. I mean, remember, Joe Biden last June, it's just about a year ago, was saying that. Fauci was saying it all along. CDC was saying it. Then, of course, the evidence starts pouring out where all these people who got the shot, got boosted and everything else, were still getting COVID and still transmitting COVID. So then the meme changed. They had to change the messaging. And the messaging was suddenly, oh, it's not a vaccine like the way we've always known vaccines, meaning that you'd be, hey, vaccinated from the thing. It's actually just going to stop you from being hospitalized. There is no evidence of this. I have never seen a study on this. Please, someone find me the study that shows that if you are vaxxed and boosted, this is the meme. This is what they all say, right? Everybody who gets COVID, when Obama gets COVID and Hillary gets COVID and Psaki gets COVID and everybody gets COVID, they all say the same thing. I got COVID and it's mild and I'm just so happy I got the shot and got boosted because otherwise I'd be sicker. There's no evidence of it. No evidence. I had a talk with Jordan Peterson last week. We were trying to find the study. We could not find it. There is no evidence. They just keep saying it. And by the way, the way he even phrases it in there, you know he's admitting it because he says, I believe. He says, I believe that at my age, because I'm vaxxed and boosted, I didn't have to go to the hospital. He doesn't say there's actually any evidence of it. This is just the meme. So he's just sort of admitting none of this made any sense. None of it made any sense. But he's also admitting the pandemic will never end.
Everybody wants to put this pandemic behind us and feel and hope that it doesn't exist. It does.
Dude, I want to feel and hope that you never existed. That's where I'm at with you right now. You know why? Because he's also pushing masks again.
You see, if you look at the map, where just a couple of months ago it was a lot of green and some yellow, now we're seeing a fair amount of orange, which means you really should, in an indoor setting, a congregate setting, be wearing masks. It's just the appropriate thing to do to protect yourself and your family.
Nonsense, complete nonsense. Of course, if you're immunocompromised, of course, if you're a certain age, and everyone is up to personal choice, of course, of course, of course. The idea that he would go on CNN 2.5 years after 6 feet away and stop the spread and 15 days and all of that nonsense, that he would still be telling people to wear masks is absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy. But he also works with this lady, Rochelle Walensky. She runs the CDC. This is a woman who should probably be in jail. And yeah, she wants everybody to wear masks too, which is very odd because I thought they were vaccinating everybody. I'm so confused.
Rochelle, to you on masking on public transport.
Yeah, thank you for that question. So let me just reiterate that CDC recommendations have been and continue to be to mask in our public transport corridors. So in our airports, in our airways, on our trains, that has not changed. It has not wavered. It has been reversed in the courts, and that is currently under legal consideration. But the CDC guidance continues to be to mask in these corridors, and I continue to wear mine.
Anyway, I know you guys are all over this. The only reason I wanted to start the show with this today is there's now a big rumor that in LA they're about to start indoor mask mandates again, which, you know what, LA and Cali, go for it. You guys all should be masked. That would be just great. But the real reason I want to show was because as they're pushing this again, they're trying to scare everybody again. And do you think that maybe they're trying to scare everybody again because we just got these 9.1% inflation numbers? Do you think maybe they needed to the shell game keeps moving, so they got to keep us distracted? I just really wanted to reiterate the point, though, that you do not have to listen to Anthony Fauci or CDC recommendation or anything else. They have no authority over you. You can care perhaps about what they say, and I don't think that they're all corrupt liars, and I think that the NIH and the CDC have obviously done good work in the past, and everyone has to take into account what's going on with them and their family and their own medical history and all of those things. But they will try to scare you and make it sound like you have to do all the stuff because they want you to, and you do not. You do not, and don't forget it. That's where we're at, and that's what we have to remember. And I know that when they bring mask mandates back, in certain places, people will gladly mask up again and triple mask again, and they'll try to scare the hell out of you. And this variant's the scariest variant of all variants. You do you, people.
That was from the Rubin Report. You need to check him out. He's got some good stuff to say, and he's got a good common sense approach to things. Next, we're going to go on here, and we're going to talk about monkeypox again. And here's CNN and Dr. Fauci. Oh, just as David said, the doom and gloom, it's back.
Monkeypox is spreading rapidly across the United States right now. The CDC is now reporting more than 1,800 confirmed cases. As of Friday, there were 866 cases reported as of last Monday, which is a 110% increase in 5 days of confirmed reported cases. Now, the former FDA commissioner, Dr. Scott Gottlieb, is saying that it may be too late to contain the outbreak.
I think the window for getting control of this and containing it probably has closed. And if it hasn't closed, it's certainly starting to close. We could have gotten control of this if we had been more aggressive up front. We made a lot of the same mistakes that we made with COVID with this, having a very narrow case definition, not having enough testing early enough, not deploying vaccine in an aggressive fashion to ring vaccinate.
Joining me right now for more on this is Dr. Anthony Fauci, the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases and chief medical advisor to President Biden. Dr. Fauci, what do you think about what Scott Gottlieb had to say right there about the response so far?
Well, I don't think the window is closed. There's a lot that has been done and that we will continue to do and accelerate, both from the standpoint of the testing that will be available. Of course, in the beginning, there were only the CDC tests that were available. Right now, we've rapidly commercialized so that we have 5 sources now at least, and maybe more. We have LabCorp, Quest, Aegis, Mayo Clinic, as well as the network from the CDC. So what went up to maybe 10,000 tests per day is going to be now 5, 6, 7 times that. The issue with vaccines is important. It would have been good to have had a lot more vaccines available early on. But right now, we have accelerated that extensively. We had about 130,000 doses at first, another 154,000. And by the end of July, there should be another 700,000 plus. So one of the differences of this type of an outbreak from others that we have, A, we know the agent. It isn't like a mystery like it was with HIV decades ago. 2, we have a vaccine that now, as the days go by, are going to become more widely available. We have diagnostics, and we also have therapy that we originally developed years ago against smallpox when we were concerned about a situation of bioterror. Could we have done better? Always. You never say we did perfectly, but I think looking forward with more vaccines being available, with therapy being available, and there is a lot of red tape associated with that, which the FDA and CDC and others are trying to cut down dramatically on the paperwork associated with getting drugs to people who would be benefiting from therapy. So again, response hasn't been perfect, but it's getting better and better.
The CDC director on just Friday talked about how monkeypox can be spread. And she mentioned skin-to-skin contact, like kissing, but also touching objects like sheets or towels. Have you seen cases contracted this way, not through intimate contact, which has been primarily how it's been described?
Well, I don't think we can speak at this point, Kate, to individual cases that you say absolutely was with a inanimate object, what we call fomites, clothes. But we know when you talk about the spread of a very similar virus, smallpox, when you get pustules, which is the clinical characteristic of the disease, when the material from those pustules can get off into clothing or inanimate objects, it's quite understandable how over a period of time, contact with that could spread it. So there may not be a defined case that you can point to, but conceptually, we know that has occurred for decades and decades with smallpox. So it's not surprising that it could also occur with this virus.
Because that is important in knowing, as it was with COVID, right? How close could we be? How far how far do your aerosols spread? I mean, it is important for people understanding their level of risk.
Exactly. But I'm glad you brought it up in that context, Kate, because we know now from clear epidemiological information that it is close person to person, skin to skin contact. Obviously, from a demographic standpoint, it's heavily weighted to men who have sex with men. Now, when you look at that, does that mean it is only a gay man's disease? No, not the case. But under the circumstances of certain types of behavior, that can be spread, which is the reason why, although you do not want to stigmatize under any circumstances people who are getting afflicted with a particular infectious disease, you've got to let the community know of the danger, and you've got to let the physicians who care for these people be aware of that so that they don't miss the diagnosis. But clearly, the modality of spread is close skin-to-skin contact.
Dr. Fauci, just before air, I saw news that you are announcing your retirement plans now. What are the plans and why now?
Now, well, that is not news. That's incorrect. If one reads, I understand the
I do not spread
confusion with
misinformation. I saw that you were speaking about your plans to retire.
I know you don't. No, Kate, I know you don't. I know you a long time, and I know you don't. What happened is that I gave an interview with a reporter, and they said, you're going to have to step down sometime. You can't be in this job forever. And I said, you're absolutely right. I can't be in this job forever, and I don't anticipate I'll be in this job before the end, at the end of the first term of President Biden, which is January 2025. Somehow that got interpreted that it's announcing my retirement. I just said that it is extremely unlikely, in fact, for sure, that I'm not going to be here beyond January 2025. So sometime between now, Kate, and January 2025, you can guarantee I'll step down.
This is how much time people need to prepare for a sea change like that. I mean, but I say that only half with humor, because after what is it, almost 5 decades in federal service? I mean, it is a major announcement. What impacts what impacts your decision? I mean, did the pandemic, the spotlight it put on you, you've been candid about that, did that impact your thought process on retirement?
No, not at all, Kate. First of all, I've established as 38 years as director of NIAID, I think the best program in the world when it comes to infectious diseases. Everybody's in a position of any influence in my institute. I handpicked. So it's something that I've been working on now for almost 4 decades. So we have a good system in place. Obviously, you can't go on forever. I do want to do other things in my career, even though I'm at a rather advanced age. I have the energy and the passion to continue to want to pursue other aspects of my professional career. And I'm going to do that sometime. I'm not exactly sure when, but I don't see myself being in this job to the point where I can't do anything else after that. So that's the reason. It has nothing to do with pressures, nothing to do with all the other nonsense that you hear about, all the barbs and the slings and the arrows. That has no influence on me.
Well, I anticipate I'll have many more opportunities to bug you in the next couple years about more of your retirement plans and your next chapter. It's good to see you, Dr. Fauci. Thank you for coming in.
Wow, what a windbag. Never can stop talking. It'll be amazing when he does retire. But unfortunately, wait till you see the person that's going to replace him. This ain't going away anytime soon. For the next clip, this is Senator Hawley, and he was questioning a woke professor at the Berkeley Law School. This is what they're teaching our kids these days, and this is the great distraction. This is to keep us off what we really need to be worrying about. But here, listen to this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks to all of the witnesses for being here. Before I want to visit with you, Ms. Meskey, but before I do, I just want to clear one thing up. Professor Bridges, you said several times, you've used a phrase, I want to make sure I understand what you mean by it. You've referred to people with a capacity for pregnancy. Would that be women?
Many women, cis women, have the capacity for pregnancy. Many cis women do not have the capacity for pregnancy. There are also trans men who are capable of pregnancy, as well as non-binary people who are capable of pregnancy.
So this isn't really a women's rights issue.
We can recognize that this impacts women while also recognizing that it impacts other groups. Those things are not mutually exclusive, Senator Hawley.
Oh, so your view is that the core of this right then is about what?
So I want to recognize that your line of questioning is transphobic, and it opens up trans people to violence by not recognizing them.
Wow, you're saying that I'm opening up people to violence by asking whether or not women are the folks who can have pregnancies?
So I want to note that 1 out of 5 transgender persons have attempted suicide. So I think it's important
because of my line of questioning? So we can't talk about it?
Because denying that trans people exist and pretending not to know that they exist.
I'm denying that trans people exist by asking you if you're talking about women having pregnancies?
Do you believe that men can get pregnant?
No, I don't think women can get
So
pregnant.
you are denying that trans people exist?
And that leads to violence? Is this how you run your classroom? Are students allowed to question you?
Absolutely.
Or are they also treated like this? Where
No,
they're told that they're opening up people to violence?
We have a good time in my class. You should join.
I bet.
You might learn a lot.
Wow, I would learn a lot. I've learned a lot just in this exchange.
Absolutely.
Extraordinary.
Yep.
That just drives me nuts. That lady's off her rocker. And then try to flip it around and say that he's creating violence by asking questions. Wow. Anyway, so next, we're going to change it up a little bit. This is SC Reviews, and this was our press secretary. But they changed the voice a little bit, and they sped it up to kind of give you an idea, the babble or the banter between the press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, and a reporter. Pretty funny, though. This is what their government really thinks about us.
Hey, is America okay? Of course it's okay. It's never been better. In fact, it's better than better. It's super better. Super better? Yeah, super better. What's super better? Super better is better than better. And better than better is better. What? That's why America is super duper better. Then why is gas so expensive nowadays? The same reason that inflation is at an all-time high. And why is that? Because? Because why? Because it is. And you think that's good? Of course I do. American families are struggling. I know, right? Well, what's President Biden doing about it? I don't know. You don't know? Look, he has money, I have money, Hunter has money. We can all afford food and gas. We're not struggling, okay? But American families are struggling! So, what are we supposed to do about it? You're supposed to help them! No. It's actually not our responsibility or our job to make sure that American families are happy. You're supposed to help them! No. It's actually not our responsibility or our job to make sure that American families are happy. That's their job. No, it's your job! I'm just up here to lie to Americans. What? I have no answers for you. Well, what about President Biden? Well, he's just the president. Huh? It's not like he's the president. It's all Putin's fault anyway. What are you talking about? Things are more expensive than they used to be, okay? Get over it. Get a better job if you can't afford gas. Or stop spending money on food and buy an electric car. It's real simple, guys.
Oh, my goodness. The crazy thing about that whole clip is that that's exactly what they think of us. And it's exactly what they're doing, spinning around. I heard a little Kamala Harris in there. I heard a little Pelosi in there. I heard a little Schumer in there. It's just crazy. But that's what we live in, clown times. So, moving on. Some more interesting conspiracy theory. Biden was over in the Middle East just last week, and for some reason, that crazy governor from California decided to show up at the White House for a meeting. I wonder what that is all about. I can only imagine. Here, check it out.
And how about Gavin Newsom showing up at the White House? Now, Joe Biden is in the Middle East. Been planning this trip for a very long time. All of a sudden, Gavin Newsom pops up in D.C. at the White House when Joe is out of the country. What's up with that?
Did you fly in yesterday? We did.
We're on hand exclusively as Governor Gavin Newsom enters the West Wing of the White House amid speculation about his political future.
Now, the voiceover you just now heard is a local Fox reporter named Alex Michelson. How did Alex Michelson know that Gavin Newsom was going to be in D.C.? Alex Michelson is based in L.A., and that means Alex Michelson flew to D.C. to catch Gavin Newsom at the White House, unless Alex Michelson was just there vacationing with his wife and happened to run into him, which I doubt.
So, is this Kamala's new running mate for vice president? Joe, better watch out. It's all happening right before our eyes. Mark my words. This just doesn't happen for any reason. It's planned. For our next clip, this is concerning the rest of the world. Our media has keeping us media silence, but the rest of the world is protesting. You've heard of the Canadian truckers. I don't know if you heard about the Netherlands and the farmers. And then, of course, India. They overthrew their government because of what's going on. Sky News from Australia is talking to a professor, Ralph Scholheimer, and this will explain what's going on, but thank goodness the rest of the world is waking up to this crazy plan of the Great Reset. You think I'm kidding? This is all happening. So have a listen. Very important, and this explains a lot.
We spoke just last week to a Dutch farmer about the unrealistic emissions targets that the government has set and how they will decimate the agricultural industry in the Netherlands, which is the world's second largest agricultural exporter. But here's the thing. The reality is this is not an isolated incident. And while the ambitions of the global elites pushing radical environmental and economic agendas has grown in recent years, happily, so too has the pushback. We've seen it in growing protests over the past weeks from farmers across Europe. The overthrow of the Sri Lankan government, which, remember, wanted to turn the whole island into an organic paradise. And this, even as far back as a surprise vote, at least for the elites, in favor of Brexit and for Donald Trump in 2016. Now, this guest, I'm so excited that he's come to join us tonight. Ralph Scholheimer is an assistant professor in economics and political science at Webster University in Vienna, and he has written a fantastic piece on the working class revolt, and he joins us now. Professor Scholheimer, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And they do say that flattery is the highest form of intimidation, so consider me thoroughly intimidated.
Fantastic. Now, you've written this great piece in Newsweek, and one of the things that you talk about here is that there is a malaise in the West currently, and you say that ideological goals of the elites are being pursued at the expense of the lower middle class and working classes, and you see truckers in Canada rebelling against this, farmers in the Netherlands, you see people rebelling against this in the United States in different ways. You see what's happening in Germany, where they've shut off the nuclear plants for whatever reason and now are going to go into a very cold winter in just a few months. They're gratifying the elites, you write, while immiserating the working class. Tell us what is happening here. Tell us why the elites are doing this, but also what is the pushback that's happening?
I mean, I think this is a larger trend. You already mentioned, Brexit and the election of Donald Trump, and those were already symptoms of that pushback. But the situation we find ourselves in, I would say it consists of four different groups, right? One group is the activists. I mean, those are the people who really believe that the end of the world is around the corner, and they're overrepresented in media, in academia, and in the cultural sphere. Then you have the governments and politicians, and what they do is they like to virtue signal to those people because they believe, right? Most of them are on Twitter. They're very active on Twitter. They believe that they represent a huge chunk of the population. And then you have companies who want to make a profit off of it, right? For example, I don't believe that Unilever cares particularly about the environment, but it's something they have to say because they wanted to pander to a specific clientele. So you have a kind of a Bermuda triangle of ideology that consists of those three groups. And the quote unquote, when I mean, the working class or the middle class, you could also call them the people who just pay their taxes and want to live their lives. Like people who don't spend a lot of time on social media. They're trapped in this because it's more and more encroaching on their daily lives. I mean, you just mentioned it, right? In Germany, to leave nuclear energy behind was a purely political, ideological position. And the people were told, oh, don't worry. We're going to replace it with wind. We're going to replace it with solar. Now it turns out that's not going to work and they will get poorer. And I think this is part of this. They realize now that they accepted the eccentric ideas of their elites to the extent that they did not believe that it will have a negative effect on their life. But now they see this negative effect. And this is what I tried to put together in my piece, right? It's school policy in Virginia. It is, agricultural policy in the Netherlands. It is, gas prices in France. It's nuclear energy in Germany. So these things are driven by the same thing, that the people say, wait a moment, we are supposed to be democracies when we constantly vote for governments that in the end pursue goals that are interesting to, those 5% of people who are very active, like who are very much in the public eye, but the other 95% are completely ignored. And I think this is the moment now, and I'm very curious how this is going to play out. I mean, the future would be something that you just mentioned, like a social conservative working class party, like a little bit, you guys mentioned this in the previous segment. You see this with Hispanics and working class blacks in the United States. They shift GOP because they say, wait a moment, the progressives, they are in some areas, right? They're insane. This is no longer common sense. They just want to switch to a common sense party. And I think this is exactly what we see at the moment.
Rita.
But you mentioned the people who pay their taxes and just want to live their lives and be left alone. They are always going to lose to those who want to win. People who want to be left alone are always going to lose. How can that population become more activated and become more politically aware? We've seen the farmers, because they were directly impacted. We've seen people whose livelihoods are threatened and they rise up. But the ordinary mum and dad out in the suburbs who pays their taxes and looks upon what's happening and goes, oh, this is crazy, but doesn't really get engaged beyond that. Do you think that will shift, or is that going to remain as it has?
It depends, right? It depends also a little bit, if you allow me to say this, on individuals and people like you. I mean, what I found most surprising is, and you mentioned this also before, there is a deafening media silence on these protests, right? Maybe I wouldn't call them yet uprisings, but they're significant protests. We're talking about, 30,000 people in the Netherlands. Now, there are people say, no, it's not 30,000, it's 25,000. Well, that's still pretty significant. So, and this was also the pushback I got. It was, well, Ralph, you inflated the numbers. It's 29,000 and not 30,000. But you see something else happening, and that's part of the story. I mean, if you observe it in the United States, in Europe, right, all of a sudden there's all this worry, again, particularly in the political and media class, about disinformation, right? They say, oh, we need to control disinformation. We have to be careful about the information that gets out there. And this, I think, is part of this, that the best way to prevent the pushback from large numbers of people is if they don't know that anything is going on. So if you have people say, wait, we want to organize, we want to push back against it. And you had this, think about the situation about the trackers in Canada, right? When they pulled their bank accounts, when they made sure that, when GoFundMe pulled their funding efforts. So this is undermining precisely what you're saying, right? The possibility of those people to organize. So it's not a conspiracy, right? I mean, it's what interest groups, what these players do. They see there is something coming that could be a threat to their power, so they try to do something to undermine it. What bothers me is, yes, go on, please.
But Ralph, the media is never going to be on the side of anybody other than that leftist elite. And we know that. We've seen that with the truckers in Canada, with the farmers now in the Netherlands, they're being either ignored or misrepresented as extremists, as dangerous fringe dwellers. So if the media isn't going to be a vehicle for informing people about what's happening, how can you have that silent majority have their voices heard?
I mean, I'm not so sure if that is entire. I think you're right, but I think there are some good signs. I look at there is the Farmer Citizens Party in the Netherlands, right? They currently have 1 seat in parliament. If there would be elections tomorrow, they would get to 20 seats. The leading Dutch government party would lose 14 out of 34 seats. Wow. So there is something going on. So I think there is, and you guys mentioned it before, right? We had Brexit. We had Donald Trump elected. So again, what everyone thinks about Donald Trump, but it seems, I think that people have a much better grasp on what's going on. I think they sometimes have a hard time to formulate this, which is why it's then very often unfortunately happens that, kind of the most extremist parts of these movements are the ones that get most of the media attention, which is also wanted because then you can discredit the rest of these movements.
Exactly.
But I still think this is happening. And what I would always argue is I think we also have to kind of tell the people this is a much larger phenomenon. And this is, I think, particularly true in Europe, right? Europe is still riddled by significant historical guilt. And I have a feeling, so one part of the story is it's the attempt to kind of atone for a past through sacrificing the future, right? And you see this a little bit, it's this idea that if we can just go back to a more pristine world, I mean, it's very true for Germany, right? There's a certain hostility towards technology, a hostility towards innovation. So there is also a historical dimension I think we should not underestimate. I mean, I think you a couple of weeks ago had Douglas Murray on your show, and when he talks about the war in the West, I think this is part of that story, right? I don't think that these things are necessarily different from each other.
Mm-hmm. Daisy.
Look, it's interesting, the global elites, particularly the left, the doublespeak, they continually claim they're for the working class, but, of course they're not. It's very obvious they're not. But I think particularly when you consider the reaction to the truckers' protest, for instance, that we discussed, and certainly the one in the Netherlands, it has morphed into, if it wasn't already, an outright disdain and hatred for the middle and working classes, don't you think, which is quite frightening.
Yes, I think you're right. And this has always, by the way, been a problem for the left, right? The left always felt, particularly which happened in the 60s and the 70s, right? Once the left kind of was taken over, let's say, by the academic left, and it's precisely what you said, right? And they claimed that they speak for the working class. They got frustrated because it turns out that the working class people, most of them, are not interested in the Great Revolution, right? They want affordable energy, they want affordable food, they want good public schools, they want limited immigration, right? They want to maintain their cultural and national identity. So they wanted to maintain all those things that the left always told them that they shouldn't, right? You're right. They said, we speak for you because, allow me to say it a little provocatively, because apparently you're too dumb to speak for yourselves. And I think that this disdain that you described, they start to realize it. I mean, you had this before. I think that Hispanics in the United States are a perfect example for this, right? They realized, they say, wait a moment, they said they speak for us, but actually they don't. And I think we're at the beginning, hopefully, right, of a shift there. And maybe just as a concluding remark on this is important because we are hampering ourselves also geopolitically. I mean, it is absurd. China builds, the Belt and Road Initiative, and the G7 want to do something similar. And the first thing they say they're going to do is take care of climate and gender equality. Interesting topic. But this is not how you play the geopolitical game. And we saw it, I'm sure, James, that you will talk about this a little later today. I mean, the visit of Biden in Saudi Arabia showed it. I mean, they treated him, they ridiculed him basically, right? I mean, they sent him packing without anything concrete. And this is, yeah, go on, sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, but, it's really interesting you talk about the geopolitics because you look at where this same elite mindset has led to geopolitically. What have we gotten? Well, we've gotten the Arab Spring, which was supposed to be about democracy, and you wind up with the Wagner Group running half of the Middle East, and Libya turning into a slave market. You look at the way the rest of the world, which doesn't share Western liberal values, looks at the values that are trying to be exported to them by the West, and they say no. And now you look at the conflict in Ukraine, where the opposition leader here in Australia was just on this network before saying this is going to be a long war, which of course will drive up energy prices even more. How does the elite still get to even be referred to as an elite when they keep making so many wrong calls?
Well, I think the reason is because they still are on the levels of power, right? I mean, I think a few days ago, there was I know this is a small thing, but I think it's part of the story. A dance school in New York that, they ban now ballet because ballet is white and privileged. So we are in
and the Russians like ballet too.
Yeah, no, but that's there. We're in constant war against ourselves, and I think this has created something. I'm in Vienna, so I can allow my inner Sigmund Freud to speak, so to say. It's a neurosis where you have a situation, because you mentioned Ukraine, people that would never, ever put an Australian or Austrian or American flag in any of their social media profile, right? They now have Ukrainian flags in there. And this is, again, one of these things, right? So it's almost as if you can be nationalistic for Ukraine, but you can never, ever dare to be nationalistic for your own country. And I think this is something that people start to feel more and more, right? They say, why is it right? Why can't I be a patriot, right? Why can't I be a nationalist? Why? And we can quibble about these terms, but the point is, why do I constantly feel that I have to sacrifice things that are very important to me in my daily life for some higher cause that probably never comes to fruition anyways? I mean, let's be completely honest here. We talk about countries that have a hard time controlling migration, that have a hard time controlling inflation, like all what we would say that, talk about crime. Look at Great Britain. They have serious crime problems. So all of these things they cannot address. But changing the world's climate, right? Controlling the very that they can do.
That they can
Controlling the weather.
Professor Schollhauer, we're going to have... We're going to have to leave it there. We're out of time. But thank you so much for joining us here on the show today. It's been an absolute pleasure and an education. We will definitely have you back. So we look forward to having you back on Outsiders again.
There was a lot to take in on that clip, but it really did explain a lot. It shows that we are globally unified, and there is something to this rich elitists, the cabal, whatever you want to call them, and the Great Reset. Seriously, look up. There's more information on this, but our media here is not reporting it. Now, to wrap things up on a lighter note, this is again a report from Australia. This was about our July 4th hot dog eating contest that took a little different spin this year. But most of people didn't know about it because the media was quiet. But not in Australia. They pushed this all over. So have a listen. This is pretty funny, but it shows you what a hot dog eating machine can do.
Well, we started the show talking about the 4th of July, and you know what? We're going to end talking about the 4th of July. Now, every year on the 4th, Nathan's Hot Dogs holds a hot dog eating competition at Coney Island in New York City where contestants force unimaginable quantities of snags down their gobs. This year was a little extra special. 15-time hot dog eating champ Joey Chestnut, gotta love that name, took the title again by downing 63 hot dogs and buns. But there was a twist. He did this while also taking out an animal rights protester who interrupted him in the middle of downing hot dog number 18. Come on, let's show that one more time. I never get tired of watching that. Anyway, it turns out the protester was from a group upset about a particular meatpacking facility they called the Smithfield Death Star. That's what it said on this T-shirt there, but Joey went on to down 45 more dogs after that without missing a beat and take out the championship again. Only in America, indeed.
That's right, badass American hot dog eaters. Well, folks, that's going to do it for today's show. I do apologize for all the technical glitches. It does sound a little wonky at times, but we're working on that, and Larry promises he has got some great, mind-blowing news that is really hard to believe. It puts the theory back into conspiracy. You're going to love it. This is the best way to say it. With that, take care. Keep looking for the elusive truth. Be happy. Give much love. That's what this world is about now. Love. Get rid of that negativity, and we will see you soon. Take care. Thanks again. Bye-bye.